Yeah, things are very strange here because this is usually at this time of year, Semana Santa is massive here because everybody drains. Hi, Holly. From everywhere in Mexico, particularly Mexico City and Guadalajara, they all come to the beach for Easter. And usually it's just absolutely crazy here. Like you can't get accommodation and, you know, it's people are sleeping on the street and in trucks and the beaches. And of course it's completely different today because there's nobody on the beach at all. The police have got, you know, kind of put ropes up stopping people going to the beach. But the thing that's really extraordinary is they've basically closed the border. So there's only one road into Vallarta and it's the bridge, and they've closed the bridge. So the only people that are let in is if you can prove with ID that you actually live in Vallarta, and that's it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Changing times.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get underway. I'll watch and let other people in as they come. Hello, it's Sherry Kalergis live from Vancouver with At 45, the magazine for women over 45, for those of us who are rediscovering who we are and exploring what we want next in life. And I think we want more of everything: love, fun, laughter, and fulfillment. And we deserve it. These are trying times, and our quarantine conversations are an opportunity to break out of your four walls, find some mental stimulation, share a few laughs, and chat. And the magazine is always supporting women, but especially at this trying time, we're just trying to support you in getting through this time. So just a few housekeeping things. Our show is being taped and put up on our YouTube. So if you don't want your public persona in the public domain, then please use an avatar or take your video off. And the agenda is simple. We're going to chat for a while, about 30 minutes with our guests, and then we'll open the lines, and we'd love to hear who you are, where you're coming from, and what reality you're dealing with during these trying times, and any questions and answers you might have of our guests. So welcome everyone. Today we are pleased to have Julie Ann, founder of Influence Publishing and also a best-selling author. She empowers authors to share their stories, and in this digital age, she believes in the power of print. Her motto is, don't let life slow you down. Keep going. Don't be afraid to dream, because whatever you dream, you can truly do it. So welcome, Julie.
Thank you. Thank you, Sherry. And I'm here in sunny Mexico. So things are hot here. And I'm very happy that we're able to use Zoom to stay in contact. So I'm really happy that Zoom is here to make that possible.
Absolutely. It's amazing, isn't it, how with this pandemic, one of the benefits of it is that people are connecting a lot more online and using the online tools than we ever have before.
Yes, it's good. Keeps me in contact with everybody. I feel like I'm, you know, that I'm not disconnected from everybody. So that's it's really good.
It is a wonderful thing. So you are a best-selling author. Your book is Around the World in 7 years, which I read, and I just loved it. It was fabulous. So tell us a little bit about you and that book.
Okay, thanks, Sherry. So this is how I got into publishing in the first place. So I never planned to be a publisher or a writing coach. I had escaped the world and went traveling for 7 years on a sailboat. And during that time, I actually sent letters to my grandma every 2 weeks. So after 4 years, I went to see her, and she gave me all of the letters. They're in a huge drawer, and she gave them all to me, and she said, right, now you have to write that book. And I was like, wow, I never considered writing a book. And she says, well, you've got everything here to write a book. I had all the material. I mean, I can't even tell you how many letters there were. 4 years worth of letters, you know, every 2 weeks. So that's a lot. And I just thought, well, okay, maybe I should do this. And so I started researching, you know, how to go about it, how to get started on a book, and ended up spending about a year going on different workshops and things like that. And eventually I was in Mexico, actually, on my sailboat. And it was during the summer, so it was very hot. So I thought, well, now's the best time to actually get started on that book. And so I started actually creating my own system, because I found that there was nothing out there of all the workshops that I'd gone that really helped me get organized. And because my background is product development, so when I was in the UK, my job was marketing, and I developed products. And so I realized, well, maybe I should just apply exactly the same process, because at the end of the day, this is a product, right? So I thought, right, well, I'm going to apply everything that I would do if I was bringing a product into the market, whether it be, you know, body lotion or Christmas crackers. And I mean, I dealt with lots of different products. And I realized that what people were doing wrong with the whole book idea was that you kind of start writing a book, and then you keep going, and then you just, like, you know, you run out of steam, and you're like, well, where am I going? I don't know where I'm going with this thing. Whereas when you put a product in the market, so classic product development, it's actually completely the opposite. So what you do first is you go to the end result, which is, who is the reader, who actually wants this product, and what do they want? So in other words, before you even start any writing, you have to consider, well, what is it that my reader wants, or what is it that my customer wants? And then how am I going to actually deliver that? So I ended up creating a system. My original system was in a great big ring binder. And then I organized all my letters and where I would put them. So I'd have, like, chapter by chapter, and actually physically stick the letters into a clear, you know, folder for each chapter. And that's how I actually got started. But what I realized is that, you know, this book, particularly Around the World in 7 Years, you know, a lot of people do travel books, a lot of people do travel journals, and a lot of people write about their travels and use their letters, or use their journal notes, or use their postcards, or whatever. But what I realized is, what did my reader actually want from me? You know, what is it that they wanted? And I discovered that what people were always asking me was, how did you do it? How did you go traveling for 7 years? You know, how did you afford it? You know, what did that feel like? You know, how did you make money along the way? So I took those questions, and then I basically addressed those questions in each chapter. So every time I was doing my writing, I was basically thinking about the reader and what would they want to know, because they don't want to know, oh, I went to go see, you know, this giant statue of Buddha in Thailand. They want to know, why did I go see the giant statue of Buddha in Thailand, and what did I think of it, and how did it feel, and what was the reasoning to go and visit there? So in other words, every single thing that I wrote, I always brought it back to the reader, and what did they want to know, and what did they want to get out of reading this book. So I think that's really the key, Sherry, is I think that's the thing that a lot of people miss when they come to the idea of writing a book, is they don't even think about who is the reader and what do they want. And then the next piece is like, how do you get started? Because basically, that's a lot of information. So you need to have a very tight theme so that you're always writing to that theme. And as I said, in my case, the theme was, what do people want to know about my travels? So it's, it's always I think many people, in my experience, a lot of people that I've been speaking to about their books, they say to me, wow, when I do this class with you or the coaching with you, what I realize is that I didn't know where I was going with my book. And I've just been doing a whole bunch of writing, but with no end goal. I don't know what the destination is. And because they didn't know the destination, then, basically you get writer's block, because it's like, well, I got so far and now I don't know what to do. So it's really a question of getting organized and getting planned and actually know what you're going to write before you write anything. Oh, your sound isn't on, Sherry.
Sorry.
Nope. There you go.
There. I muted it because there's feedback, but I actually think it's from your side. Your mic might just be a little bit too close to your face. So, but what I believe I hear you saying, and I know, as you know, writing in the magazine, it's a constant thing. When you first sit down, you just have this need to put everything down, and you're like trying to get it out of your head, and so it becomes a big torrent of content. And I think what I hear you say is that it is better to approach the end goal or look at the end goal before you start writing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. I mean, when I work with people, I get them, the first thing we do is we actually create a writing plan. So effectively, everybody that I work with, they know chapter by chapter exactly what they're going to be writing. So what they end up with is, let's say you had 10 chapters. They might have 5 points per chapter. And those 5 points might each be, let's say, 1,000 words. So let's say, 2 or 3 pages of writing. So if they've got on their wall now 50 points, basically, so they've got 10 chapters and 5 points per chapter, they can actually just go to any point and write those 2 pages. So they can write their book in any order whatsoever. They do not have to get stuck, because if you get stuck, all you do is you go to another point and start writing to that, and then just go back to the other ones that are a little bit more difficult, towards the end. So basically, if you know what you're going to be writing and you know who that you're writing it for, then all you do then is organize that into chapters. And the easiest way to do that is actually with a mind dump. So I do, a mind mapping with everybody, where basically you just dump out everything that is in your mind regarding your book. And then you just go through that mind map and you create a writing plan from that mind map. So it's, if you know where you're going with the book, then you don't have to do it in one big chunk. You can literally just say, I'm going to write 2 to 3 pages on this topic every day. And in reality, if you did that, you could actually easily write your book in 40 days.
Wow. So I know many people are going to say, well, yeah, it's something I've always wanted to do, but so people who are starting out, how do they address those objections that they're telling themselves?
That's one of the most challenging things, Sherry, and and I'm very passionate about this, which is why my new website is called Julie Inspires, because people keep saying, oh, you're so inspiring. And it's not that I'm inspiring, it's just that I help people to understand what's getting in their way. And usually what's getting in the way is themselves.
A common problem, I think.
Melanie's pointing at herself. Yeah, it is definitely ourselves that get in our way. And you know, one of the reasons why that is that old story again that we hear all the time is I'm not good enough. You know, I'm not good enough. I'm not a good enough writer. My story's not interesting enough. You know, why would people want to listen to me? I don't have the time to do it. I don't know where to get started. I don't have enough money, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, I think the biggest objection is that I'm not good enough. And, you know, it's interesting because Marilyn will know this, that when I did my TED talk on dyslexia, I was actually terrified of going on the stage and telling everybody that I was a dyslexic publisher, because I thought I would be judged for that, right? It's like, wow, you're a publisher and you're dyslexic. How does that work? And what I realized is that, yeah, I had never let that hold me back, but I certainly didn't want to talk about it in the public because I thought people would judge me. But what actually happened is the opposite. People didn't judge me. They actually admired me because I was brave enough to, you know, display my weaknesses, if you like, on the stage, and show people that, you know, actually I succeeded because of dyslexia. You know, it was actually the things, a lot of the traits of dyslexia are connected to the way that your mind works. And it's actually my dyslexic mind which allows me to help people unmuddle their story, because I have my ability, I have a very big creative brain as opposed to a big analytical brain. So my big creative brain is able to problem solve. So when I look at those mind maps that just look, you know, chaotic, I just see, I see patterns immediately. Immediately I can see the patterns of what everybody's written. And mostly I just point at the mind map and I go, oh, look, so this is chapter 1, and this leads very nicely into chapter 2 in these topics, and this leads very nicely into chapter 3. And it's there in front of them, but they can't see that because it's, you know, they're in that space themselves. And so, you know, it's the dyslexic mind is one that's able to kind of break through all of that clutter and actually just help the person to get organized. So, but, you know, at the end of the day, I think we still very much judge ourselves. And, you know, there's a lot of people, whether they've got dyslexia or whether they just feel like their writing's not good enough, it's actually turned out to be quite inspiring when I tell people that I'm dyslexic, because it's like, well, you know, I'm a publisher and I'm dyslexic, so what's your problem?
So what, like, for women who don't think that they can write, that isn't an objection really with your publishing, because you support the writer through the process. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. I actually, Sherry, there's very, very few people that can't write. What they do is they get mixed up with the role of the author and the role of the editor. So they forget that an editor is very experienced with grammar and spelling and sentence structure, and all the things that we judge make good writing. But actually, the thing that makes good writing is good storytelling. So if you're able to just tell your story from the heart, then that actually makes you a good writer. And you don't need to worry about the editing, because that's what the editor does. You know, the editor's skill set is language. So they're going to take your words from the heart and they are going to make you sound brilliant, because, you know, you've got the story. So I just say to people, just write as though you're doing journal writing. Just literally be kind to yourself and just let it flow from your heart, and as though you are literally writing a journal. And then leave the rest to the editor, because that's their job. And editing sometimes is confused. There's many different types of editing. The first type is called structural or developmental editing. And that's basically what I do. So I help people put together the structure, the flow, and help them with the development of the actual book in terms of the chapters, the organization of the chapters, etc. And then the next stage of editing is called content editing. It also goes by some different names like line editing, etc. But basically that is grammar and spelling and sentence structure. I refer to it as technical editing. So if you are serious about writing a book, then basically do yourself a favor and make sure that you have a good structural and developmental editor who's going to help you with the actual content and the storytelling part of it. And then make sure that you've got a good content editor who is basically going to make you sound brilliant, because they're going to correct all your grammar and your sentence structure. And really, that's all you need. You know, anybody can write a book, but not on your own. You can't do this by yourself. And I think that's where people really, that's where they get misled. They try and do this by themselves. And, you know, you shouldn't try and do this by yourself. You need support, and you need a team of people, and you need the people that are expert in those fields. So don't try and do it by yourself. Basically, it's a whole bunch more fun when you do it with other people that know what they're doing.
Well, I think too, that just listening it would inspire anybody to take that first step and acknowledge that they can write a book, that they don't need to be an expert at everything. And I mean, every one of us has a story, you know, a unique story. Our life is a story every day. There's no lack of things to write about. So, you know, especially in this time of COVID, it's a perfect time for people who are inside, not able to do a lot of things. It is the perfect time to write a book.
Yeah, it is. It's the perfect time, because Sherry, I would say before this, that's probably the biggest objection that I got from people was, I don't have the time for this. You know, my life is just too busy and I really don't have the time to write a book. And what I always said to anybody with that objection is, you know, once you're organized, all I'm asking you to do is write 1 or 2 pages a day. And if you can't do 1 or 2 pages a day, then commit to 1 or 2 pages a week. But by giving them a target of organizing what they're going to write, then you don't get that situation, which a lot of people have, is they sit down to write, and then what they do is they read what they wrote last time, and then they edit what they wrote last time. And then by the time they've done all that, they haven't actually got around to doing any new writing, because they're just exhausted with doing that. So what I'm saying is, don't do that. Just only write the first draft and know what you're going to write. So then you've got this whole bullet list of topics that you're going to write to. You get stuck on one topic, stop, and just move to the next topic. And before you know it, you're going to have 40,000 words, and then get the help to bring it all together. So that's when you need your structural editor and your content editor to actually help you bring all those pieces together. But this way, you don't have to, you know, people think that they have to have the whole manuscript done. Like, I don't know how many people a day answer me and say, oh, I'll let you know when I finished the first draft. It's like, that's really too late to be using my expertise, because I'm just probably going to tear apart what you've written and say, well, you were writing about the wrong thing. So don't waste your time, you know, writing a whole bunch of stuff that's not going to work in a book. Get the focus first as to what's going to work. And again, you know, the key to that is knowing who you're writing for and who your reader is. So, and you know, you can always test the water by doing a collaborative book. So, you know, we've been working on a lot of collaborative books now. We've had 6 bestsellers with the Woman of Worth series. Rebecca's here with the Family Tree series. So she's done 2 books now with the Family Tree series. And when you've got multiple authors that are contributing to one book, then it's a whole lot of fun and it's a whole lot easier. And you get to dip your toe in the water and really see how much fun it can be and how easy it actually can be. So Rebecca's a really good example, and she's here on the call because Rebecca was first did a chapter in the Woman of Worth book. And then by doing the chapter and actually seeing how that works with multiple authors, she then came on my retreat, my writer's retreat in France, and she said, well, these are all my ideas for a book, but actually what I'm really drawn to is writing about the relationships between mothers and daughters and fathers and sons and daughters and fathers, daughters, anyway, the combinations of them all. And I said, well, why not do a collaborative book? Because, you know, what's better than getting, you know, 10 people sharing their stories about, you know, 10 women, say, sharing their stories about their relationship with their father, than to take on that whole project and try and write 40,000 words yourself. And so Rebecca dived into that and found that, wow, this is so much fun. I'm going to do it again. So, so we have this never ending a series of books now about different family member relationships. And, you know, and she would never have done that had she not wrote a chapter in a book to start with and actually see, you know, what the process was like and how easy. So I think, you know, I really encourage people, if you feel really overwhelmed with the idea of writing your own book, then first of all, dip your toe in and write a chapter and join a whole group of people that are going to be doing it. So, you know, right now, Rebecca's talking to me about the next Family Tree book, and she's also looking at doing a collaborative book around the subject of nutrition and health and wellness. And of course, Sherry, you know, we are still looking at a couple of projects for collaborative books as well. So that's something that maybe you want to talk to that right now, Sherry.
Yes. Well, first I want to say, Rebecca, at the end of the show, we're going to unmute and let people have a chance, and we'd love to hear your story and your experience. But yes, we've had a couple of collaborative book ideas, and we just, for one reason or the other, and I think a lot of people saying they didn't have the time. One is the 70 is the new 50 and 60 is the new 40. So we're always, it's been on the back burner, but I think it's a timely occasion to bring it back. And so if you know any women who have amazing stories and want to share it and are over 60, we'll be releasing it on our website again for people to come in on. But it's an absolutely fabulous approach if you're a bit overwhelmed with writing a whole book and getting started on it, for sure. Can we just touch on the audience question again? Can you sort of just give a couple examples of writing to the audience instead of like us just writing or getting our thoughts on paper? What would be an example of using the audience to guide your writing?
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that's a great question. Well, let's use Rebecca as an example because she's here. So, you know, when Rebecca was looking at her first book in the series, which was the relationship between fathers and daughters, then, you know, who is your audience? Who are the people that are going to be interested in reading a book about fathers and daughters? Now, the obvious answer to that is fathers and daughters. But why would fathers and daughters be interested about reading somebody else's book about fathers and daughters. And the reason for that is because we have challenges with our relationships, and we can learn from other people's stories, you know, how we might overcome those challenges. And so, you know, let's say, for example, you are a daughter of, you know, you're a grown-up daughter, and you're having a difficult relationship with your, you know, 70-year-old father, for example. That's often what happens. It's more the adult relationships that are more of a challenge. And when you read the story of 10 other relationships, you're going to get ideas from each one of those stories how you might improve your relationship with your own father. And so that's from the daughter's perspective. From the father's perspective, then they get a real insight into, well, what might happen if you screw this up? So, you know, there are a lot of fathers that really don't understand women. They really don't understand their daughters. They think they're on a completely different planet. And if they're reading a book from the perspective of a daughter, so the daughter's telling the story and explaining some of the challenges that they have with their father, then the father then reading that book is also going to get a whole lot of information how he may improve his relationship with his daughter, and going forward into their adult relationship, what an impact that might have. And I know from Rebecca's perspective that we had a lot of men that were, you know, reading the stories and saying, wow, I had no idea, you know, that this particular event that happened was going to have an impact on my daughter's life, you know, for the next 40 years, you know, and that might just be something, you know, as simple as, you know, the father was never there when the daughter was asking for help of homework or something like that. And so the daughter ends up feeling that she's abandoned by her father, and that no one's ever there to support her or listen to her. That's going to go right forward into her relationships with men in general in her adult life. And so, you know, it was important for those fathers to read those stories and then go, wow, you know, like what I do today with my daughter is going to impact my daughter's life and her relationships with men, you know, for the rest of her life. And so, I mean, my responsibility is much bigger than I realized it was. So it's understanding who you're going to help with your book, basically. So, you know, let's say, for example, you know, you're writing a book about your journey with cancer, and you're writing a book talking about, you know, healing from cancer. So who's going to be your audience? Well, it's not just going to be people who have cancer or are going through the experience and journey of cancer. It could also be for people that are supporting other people that are going through the journey of cancer. And they don't want to read about all the trauma, or the side effects, or, you know, the actual symptoms of the of cancer. What they want to know is, how did you overcome it? Where did you get your support from? How did people help you? Where did you go for resources? What did you do about your diet? What other alternative methods of healing did you use? So the readers are looking for information, basically. You know, they want to know, what's in it for me? If I read this book, what's in it for me? What am I going to get from this book? So that's really what I mean by the reader is, you know, think about your story and think about who you can help the most by sharing your story, and then think about, what do they want to know? So what is it that they're looking for from you? And usually what they're looking for is solutions. So they're looking for how did you do it? What did you do? What were the steps for recovery? How did you make your journey better? You know, a book that's just telling your story with no how to, if you like, is not a very interesting story. And again, that's something I think that a lot of people make that mistake when they're writing their memoirs, is they're just telling a story. And what makes the story interesting is understanding, well, how did you overcome difficult relationships? How did you overcome trauma? You know, how did you overcome your challenges in life, whether they be, you know, mental health challenges or physical challenges? So the reader wants to know, how did you do it, basically? And that's what they're looking for in the book.
That's a fascinating perspective. Very good examples, because I could really get a feel for the difference between writing for your audience and writing for yourself. So if people are ready to go and thinking, yes, this is a good idea, so how do they focus in on that book? What do they need to do?
Okay, so there's a few different ways that you can do this. Of course, I actually do some. I've got a program that I offer, which is a 4-week program to get you organized. But basically, if you want to try to do this by yourself, then one of the best ways to get started is to actually do that mind map. So, you know, you want to get everything out of your head that is the idea for your book, and then get it onto a huge big piece of paper, and basically just throw it up. You know, it's there was a well-known author, I have to remember his name right now, and he said that a good writer is one that can throw up and then clean up. So, you know, I'm suggesting that you really need to do the throwing up part first, because if you don't, you're always going to end up with this whole bunch of clutter in your head. And it's going to get in the way, because as you're writing, you'll be going, oh no, maybe I should do this, or maybe I should talk about this, or maybe I should go in that direction, and it's cluttering. So once you get it all out, then you've got it on, you've got it out of your head, and you've got it on this big piece of paper, and then you can start cleaning up on that big piece of paper and literally just going through and say, okay, well, what does my reader want? So look at your story. So let's just say, let me pick an example. Right now I'm working with Jennifer on her book, which is Choosing Love Over Fear. So when we did her mind map, we actually mind mapped all the different ways that fear is manifested. So we actually looked at her mind map, and I asked for all the examples of everything that she wanted to talk about in terms of examples of choosing love over fear. So she had some, you know, she's a humanitarian, so she was involved in the Ebola crisis. She was involved in Haiti, and there was a few other examples in her personal relationships, for example, and in some of her relationships with other people. And so once we had that all on a mind map, we then went through and we said, well, what does the reader actually want to know? So for example, under her experiences about Ebola, we went through the mind map and we decided what were the best examples which would help the reader to understand where she chose love over fear, and what were the results of making that choice. And it wasn't always what you expected. So, you know, she actually made a choice to go to the into the you know, infected Ebola area, and it actually meant that she lost her job because she was given an ultimatum, and she also lost her fiance because he also gave her an ultimatum. You know, if you're going to go into this Ebola area, then, you know, that's not I don't want to continue a relationship with you. And her workplace said the same thing. So there's two very good examples where you'd think, well, she didn't choose love over fear because, well, she lost her relationship, but she was talking about the love of herself. So it was her choice. She passionately wanted to go and help people. And if those two people went into fear themselves, which is really what it was about, it was all about their fear that was stopping her from doing what she really wanted to do in her own heart. So that's an example of exploring the mind map and saying, well, is that a good example of choosing love over fear, or is that not a good example? And then if you didn't think it was a good example, you would cross it off and you would say, okay, I'm not going to write about that topic. But you can't do that until you get it all out. So I do really recommend that the first steps are that you just do that mind dump, and then look at that mind dump and start to go through it and ask that question: what does my reader want to know? And does this story give them information, or does this story is it just a story with no solution, no advice, no information about the journey? So that way you can literally just pick which topics you think from your mind map actually fit in your book. What are they going to learn from it?
So I'm really curious, Julie, do you find that people who start this process, what they thought their book was about actually changes after they've done that step?
I would say probably 95% of the cases, yes. That's why I said that, it is, I really encourage people to get some coaching, because otherwise you're going to get really frustrated if you end up doing a whole bunch of writing and then realize you're writing in the wrong direction. But really, those are the questions I ask people, right? So if you want to do that without coaching, you just got to ask yourself those same questions. What does my reader want? And does this particular story help them? Or does this particular story just tell a story with no, sorry. I've got somebody on their hands and knees, like walking behind me on their hands and knees.
We seen him scoot by once.
That's great. So funny. So yeah, it really is all about, it's that very simple question. That's all you have to, you do a mind dump, and then you go through everything on the mind dump and you say, is this going to help my reader? Are they going to be interested in this story because it actually helps them?
Well, it's just fascinating. I've learned a whole bunch today. Thank you so much for sharing with us. I'd really like to open the lines up now and hear a little bit from some of the women that are online. Rebecca, we'd love to hear from you. Tell us your experience.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Julie. Beautiful call. Yeah, I'm so grateful for you, Julie, and our two beautiful books we've created, and your coaching. And when you were talking about the mind map, I'll never forget. I'm so blessed that I got to go to France and creating that first mind map with you. And so I think everybody on the line here probably is working with Julie, but I would just, anybody who's listening to the recording, I would definitely recommend in that beginning phase to get Julie's help, at least with the mind map, because it's gonna start you off so much better. I had a quick question, and that's why I wanted to just come on for a second. I think you've kind of answered it. My husband has written his own book. I think you know this, Julie. And he has a beautiful, powerful story. And he's written his own one-man show, which he performed, and it was beautiful. So it's based on that same sort of childhood trauma that he's overcome. And but he's very, just like everything you talked about, he's written the whole thing. And now he's going through an editing. And I've gently a couple times said, hey, honey, like, you might really want to get somebody else involved. But you probably see this a lot, like people get protective too.
Yes.
So I don't know. I mean, I guess I could share this call with him. Do you have any other tips for just how I can maybe support him in getting some outside help?
Yeah, I mean, it's you can only, I mean, maybe you can compare it to what he does because, you know, he's a teacher, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, he must understand the importance of getting expert help on a topic that you're not an expert on yourself. You know, like he really improves the ability of his students by guiding them with his expertise. And really that it's no different with a book. And it goes back to what I was saying about editing. You know, if you just keep editing yourself, you're going to end up editing out some of the gold because you're judging it yourself and you're not judging it from, you know, the reader. So you really need to get an expert to actually give their opinion of that. And now he can either go to somebody he trusts, you know, which would be me because, you know, I know him. And so that would be preferable. My cat's trying to get in on the action now.
It's a popular show.
That's so funny. But it, you know, because of the topic, it's probably it's funny. It's just because of the topic, it's probably much better for him to be doing that with somebody that he knows, you know, rather than doing that with a stranger like an editor that he doesn't know. You know, at the end of the day, that's what he needs. He needs an editor. He needs an editor to look at the structure, and he needs an editor to look at the language, you know, look at the content. And particularly with that type of topic, you know, it's really, really important to think of the reader. Are they actually going to get traumatized by reading the story? Are they going to get triggered by reading the story? And that's something that an editor can give you advice on as well. So it's yeah, it's really important to get an extra. Don't try do this. Nobody should try do their book by themselves. I mean, you know, we all have one time to make a first impression, and if you do something as important as a book by yourself, then you're not using the expertise that's needed, because nobody can do anything perfectly by themselves unless you've put your own 10,000 hours in yourself. Then you're not an expert on that topic. So none of us are. You know, we need people to help us, and people always struggle by trying to do something themselves. And you know, that information needs to be out in the world. So that really needs to be his next step. You know, getting the expert that can really give him some guidance, and you know, it would just immediately just accelerate the project immediately.
Yeah.
Well, and I think in this self-help age, it's very easy for us all to think that, you know, we go and watch a YouTube, or maybe we're a professional in some other arena, and it's almost a matter of pride. I can do this, right? But really, everything goes so much faster when you have expertise involved.
Oh yeah.
For sure.
I mean, I just paid for somebody to do my website, and I could have, you know, I could have used the same software that she did, you know, to use templates and what have you, but I would have ended up with a website with bad formatting, and you know, it wouldn't have represented who I am as an expert, as a professional, because I don't know anything about web design, right?
No.
So
Yeah.
sure, like I could save money and try and do it myself, but at the end of the day, that's not going to make me look very professional. So let an expert do it, right? And then, you know, now people look at my website and they say, wow, that's a really nice website. And I'm like, yeah, actually, I think it's a really nice website too. But I had to pay somebody to do it because I'm not an expert in websites.
Yeah, no, it's true. Now, is anybody else on the call, excuse me, who would like to comment or has some questions for Julie?
Melanie.
Hi there. Hi, everyone. So I'm Melanie. I was also an author on one of the WOW books, and I've now written three books that are sort of collaborative type projects. And I definitely suffer from the trying to do everything myself. And so I have this book that I've been working on for far too long. And when you said that, you know, I go to write and I spend so much time trying to find whatever it is that I wrote, and then I do that re-editing, and then I'm like, oh, well, this isn't organized, and then sometimes I try and organize it, and then at other times I'll go, well, I'll just start again. So I've got versions and versions, and it's just a huge quagmire, and it's kind of driving me crazy. So then I fail to see where the value is in all this, and then I stop, right? And then it's like, oh, here's a collaborative thing I can work on, and I abandon it. So I'm abandoning it. So just trying to move through that, I've realized that I have far too much information. So I think your mind map thing, like I realized that I probably, it's not one book, it's a whole, it's a series, right?
Right.
And so I've got like a fictional element that is a fiction book that would be sort of for marketing purposes, and that's kind of the fun project. Then there's the nonfiction, which is really more, it's better for, I decided I should make it into like a course, because then people will, instead of sitting there reading it and going, oh, good idea, do nothing, stay on the sofa, different to sort of engage people in a course type environment. So I know here what to do, and then my heart gets all in a flutter, and I am like the little sort of hedgehog who just kind of curls up in a ball and thinks, well, no one can see me. And I am working. Look, I'm typing right now. You know, like, yeah, so I'm just like, ugh. And so now with this whole COVID thing going on, one of the elements is, you know, my target are people who live alone, grocery shopping, cooking, and eating alone, and finding no magic in that, and lots of food waste and what have you. So I'm like, Melanie, it's like being handed to you on a platter, like write the fucking thing and get on with it, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I am right now. So I just phoned my mom, and she's told me I sounded very agitated and I should just meditate for like 3 hours.
So,
Julie, I'm just curious in that case, because I think a lot of people might feel like Melanie does. Is there a chunking approach to when you get yourself too deep and you can't get out? What can you do?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've got my, you know, I've done some mind mapping, and I have like all my little yellow sticky notes on you know, file folders that have been opened up. So I have a bunch of those, and that's all done, and got things really quite organized. But then I sort of let it fall, and now I'm like, okay, I need to really get this one element of the food and being alone. Right.
Yeah. So
I need to pick something and just start and complete it, because I feel like I've never, you know, nothing's been completed.
Yes. So what you need to do, Melanie, is ask yourself, who can you help the most right now? And I think you know the answer to that, because you just said it, right? The people that are alone in isolation. So you need to just really, really focus on that, because those people need your help right now. So just think, what do they need? What do these people need? You know, it's almost like you're being very selfish by keeping this information to yourself, Melanie, right? It's a very selfish thing to do. Stop it. You need to actually deliver that to the people that need it. So what do the people need right now? What is the biggest need? And how can you help them as fast as possible? So that needs to be your focus, nothing else. Because at the moment, there's a lot of people that really need your help. So stop being selfish and just deliver the information to them.
Good advice, Julie. Now we've got a couple questions on the chat.
Sherry, can I say something really quick?
Oh, absolutely.
I want to go back to what Julie talked about, and I apologize for not having video, but my hair has grown to imaginable proportions. I also do book reviews, and one of the saddest things for me when I get a book from a young author, especially just starting out, that obviously has talent, is to see a poor book because they did not have the money, or for whatever reason work with what I would a structural editor at the start to understand what they needed to be doing. And I'm in a position now, I have 2 books from a young adult writer who her first 2 books, and she tried to do too much. It's a fiction, it's magic. The magic rules weren't laid out ahead of time, so she's throwing in new magic and new creatures and putting in all kinds of fun names, and it's distracting. And it's unfortunate because had she worked with somebody to walk her through how to build that fantasy world, how to create cohesiveness, how much stuff to input, and instead of throwing it all out there, dealing at little portions, she'd be getting a different response. And it breaks my heart. So I know it costs, but I also know from my journey and from my book reviewing, I can tell the authors who have worked with somebody to help them cut the noise out instead of throwing everything there and holding on to the important things to help them focus a book and make it a good. It's a worthwhile investment if you really care. If this is your baby, go to the doctor and do it at the start. And do it right. Get the information you need. So here's this 20-something-year-old writer that's getting reviews from her friends that are all 5-star, and she'll probably do okay because she's in young adult. But if she had just gotten even enough information before her first book on how to approach doing something like this, she'd have a whole different book out there. And down the road, if she does get it, she's going to be very embarrassed by these early books. So I'm going back to the noise. There's a lot of noise, especially for first-time writers. I even heard Melanie say it, I've got all these things to put in. No, you don't. You cut the noise out. And there is one thing your book is supposed to be about, and everything else supports it. And that's something I've learned from Julie, but it's come home as I reviewed probably over 100 books now. You can tell when somebody has taken the time to get good advice. It really shows, and the message comes through, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, so much better, which is our goal as writers. I just wanted to tuck that in before the questions.
Okay, cool. Okay, so Sherry, I know we're running out of time, so let me just quickly answer Judy's question.
Yeah.
So Judy, this is why I created my new website. So my new website is www.julieinspires.com. Julie Inspires. And that is where you'll find all of the information on my online workshops. So the other websites I have are, again, overloaded with information because they're like over 10 years old. So this new website, julieinspires.com, has just got the information on all the new online programs. I am doing a special offer for April because there's so many people in isolation and need help. So I am offering 4 one-on-one sessions for half price. So that would usually cost $600 for 4 one-hour one-on-one sessions with me. And I am now offering it for April half price. So it would be $295. So that's like that's a really good offer that you should take advantage of. And if that's still a struggle for you right now, I'm offering a group class, which is a maximum of 6 people. And the next class would start on the 23rd, which is the day after my birthday, which is next Thursday. So if you are interested in that, you can just drop me a note, inspireabook@yahoo.com. yahoo.com, and that's my personal email, and we can get you organized quickly. Or you can just go to julieinspires.com and you can register right on the website there.
That's perfect, Julie. Thank you for those offers. Just one thing, we'll change the links in the articles about you. We have a number, so we should change them to the new link.
Yes.
Judy just asked him, is the link to publishing seamless once the workshop is complete?
Yes.
So does the project go right into publishing?
I take with the coaching, I take you as far as getting ready for publishing. So I get you to the point where you're actually ready for publishing. But then the publishing is a separate agreement with me because I actually, manage the editing as well. So that's going to depend on what level of editing you need, whether you need structural editing from myself and content editing. So now I've got different publishing agreements at different prices depending on what level of editing you require. So, and also right now I'm working on a low cost option because there's a lot of people that really, really want to get published quickly. And they don't have the, the thousands of dollars, to do it with a big marketing campaign, etc. So I'm actually working on a low cost publishing option, which will either be only an ebook on Amazon, and I am looking at a potential print option. So there's something I'm working on right now, Sherry, because I'm really trying to bring prices down to give people low cost options so they can actually get their book out there whilst we're all in isolation right now.
It's a perfect opportunity. Judy's just saying, could you repeat your email address again?
Yes, it is inspireabook@yahoo.com. I'll just put it in here in the chat so that everybody can see it. Inspire a book at, there we go, yahoo.com. Inspireabook@yahoo.com. It's in the chat now.
Well, so I want to thank you so much, Julie, for coming on the show. It's been fabulous. The information you shared, amazing. I think people will be inspired to write their books.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm here to help people. So you can always just send me an email and say, hey, what do I do next? And I can give you some direction.
Well, thank you for that generous offer. And we encourage everyone to subscribe to the magazine at 45.com, as well as these shows are on our YouTube channel at 45 Women Disrupting Influencers. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks so much. Love from Mexico.
Thank you.
Bye.
From Canada. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks from Canada. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.